Hey, sister students, hope you're doing well. Today we are continuing on with American domestic policy, and today we're talking about court cases, some major court cases that you need to know from this time period. Okay, so the first major court case we're going to be talking about is Mendez versus Westminster School District. This is 1947. It's in California. This is not a Supreme Court case, but it is a court case that rises to the basically the highest court level in California. And what it ultimately says is that Mexican American students could not be segregated. So they were being segregated into separate schools. Under this court ruling, the court stated that this is a violation of their 14th Amendment, which gives people born in the United States equal rights, and those rights can't be taken away by a state. And so it said that if you are a student, then you cannot be segregated because of your race. And so California actually becomes the first state to desegregate its public schools, and that's Mendez versus Westminster School District. Okay, next we're moving to Texas. This is going to be the same ruling, but in Texas. So Delgado versus Bastrop ISD. Bastrop ISD is a school district in central Texas that was segregating Mexican American students, and in this case, the Texas court ruled that you cannot segregate Mexican American students in Texas. This is the same as Mendez, but Mendez is California, Delgado is Texas. Okay, our next case is Hernandez versus Texas. This is 1954. Mr. Hernandez was on trial for murder in Texas. He was convicted of murder. His jury, however, was all white, and so he claimed that he was discriminated against because there were no citizens on the jury that were like him. He's obviously a Mexican American, and the jury was all white, so he took his case to the Supreme Court, said that he did not get a fair hearing because the jury was all white. The Supreme Court ruled in his favor. That ruled that Mexican Americans were a class of citizens that were entitled to protection, and you could not exclude them from a jury. So Mr. Hernandez actually got a retrial. Mexican Americans were on the jury. He, however, was still convicted. Okay, our next case is White versus Register, 1973. So what happened was, in 1970, the Texas legislature redrew the lines for different voting districts. And they reorganized Bexar County and Dallas County, and they reorganized them in a way so that Mexican Americans and African Americans and other minorities would not have a good chance of being elected. So they're drawing the lines to try to exclude groups from having representation. This is called gerrymandering. And so this case was taken to the Supreme Court. This is actually a Supreme Court case, and the Supreme Court ruled that what the state legislature did was illegal. You cannot draw lines to try to exclude groups from being elected. In fact, you must draw lines so that groups can elect their own candidates. You must make these one-member districts. You need to draw the lines so that everyone has fair representation in Congress and in also local level elections as well as state level elections. Our next court case is Edgewood ISD versus Kirby. This is a 1984 court case. Edgewood ISD is a poor school district in Texas. It has a large population of Mexican American students. They filed a lawsuit against Mr. Kirby. Kirby was the Texas Education Commissioner. They claimed that their school was not being funded properly. School districts receive money from property taxes, and so in a poor area, houses are not worth as much. People pay less in taxes, therefore the schools get less money. In richer areas, the houses are worth more, therefore the taxes are paid at a higher amount, and the schools receive more. So Edgewood claimed that they were not getting an adequate amount of money, and so they sued the state. The Texas Supreme Court ordered the state to find a more equitable system of public school finance. They actually sided with Edgewood ISD, said this is not an adequate way to finance public schools, and so the state needed to find a new way. This actually led to what we call the Robin Hood laws, where richer districts give up some money that goes to poorer districts, just like Robin Hood robbed from the rich to give to the poor. Our next case is Wisconsin versus Yoder, 1972. Yoder, this is an Amish family that wanted to pull their children out of the Wisconsin public school system to homeschool their children and to train them in their Amish values. But the state of Wisconsin had a law that students had to attend school even beyond 8th grade. And the parents wanted to pull their kids out of school, so they sued the state, said that this rule violated their freedom of religion, the First Amendment right. And the Supreme Court ruled and said that their rights were violated. So they struck down that Wisconsin law that required the Amish children to attend school and public education and allowed the Amish families to homeschool their children. Okay, here are the major court cases that you're going to need to know. Put them all in one place so you can take a look. You can stop it here. Test yourself, make sure that you know what each of these are and what the result was. And if you can do that, then you will be successful.